All right, I'd like to call to order this Mobile GR Commission meeting on May 1st, 2025, approximately 12 p.m. Can we take roll call?
Here.
I think I got it. Okay. Lunger,
Here.
Whistling,
Here.
Clark, Legrand, Wynn,
Here.
Mathis,
Here.
Sessa,
Here.
Patton,
Here.
Pawalka.
All right, it's established we have a quorum. First order of business are the approval of the minutes of April 10th. They were in our packets. Are there any comments or corrections? All right,
I'll motion approve minutes.
Second.
all right. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Next is our first public comment opportunity. This is public comment on agenda items only. Anyone in the audience would like to step forward? Now is your opportunity. All right, I'll close that public comment. Action items. First is parking incentive request. Do you want to cue that up, Ms. Jessica?
Sure, thank you. The OVD Insurance Agency is a new business to downtown, and they are looking at taking advantage of the parking incentive program. This was the incentive program we talked about last month, and also had another applicant to this program at that time. This application, you have in your packet a little, the same background about what the parking incentive program entails, and what your authority is as the Mobile GR Commission to approve these applications. The application here, we also show for you the total value of the incentive, and then what the incentive is. The request is that the business is requesting a 1-year 50% incentive for 70 parking spaces at Ottawa Fulton Ramp to accommodate staff parking, and at the current monthly parking rate of $143 per space, the total value of the incentive is $60,060. So what we have here is the commission, your notes that the commission has established a parking incentive plan under the City Commission Policy 933, and that the Mobile GR Commission is authorized to grant a 50% discount from monthly parking fees for 1 year for businesses entering into a lease agreement for 5 years or longer. Therefore, and your resolution here is that the Mobile GR Commission approves a 50% discount for 1 year for 70 spaces at Ottawa Fulton Parking Ramp for the Oliver Van Dyke Insurance Agency, and the Mobile GR Director is authorized to execute a memorandum of understanding with OVD Insurance Agency upon approval as to form by the city attorney.
All right. I would entertain a motion.
I'll motion.
All right,
I'll second.
okay. Discussion? Any comments? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next action item relates to the same, just establishing a working group for this parking incentive review. So Jessica, are there some requirements you'd like to explain, or?
Yep. All right, so last meeting, we were chatting about the parking incentive program in general, and because it's been a while since we've seen an applicant for this program, and so we gave a overview for you all, and you had a discussion around the program and the nature of it. Because the program is last looked at in 1995, the board spoke to maybe there was an opportunity to establish a working group of the Mobile GR Commission to make recommendations for potential changes to this policy. So a couple of things I just wanted to note. One is that the policy is a city commission policy. So if a working group is established, this is, again, advisory only, and you all are well aware of that. So even though this board does approve the applications, changes to the policy would have to be brought to the city commission, and I'm happy to help you all through that process. Establishing a working group is, I just checked with legal department, and it is totally appropriate to establish a working group to have those conversations, but just making sure that your working group does not make a quorum. You can also, the chair has the ability to appoint a working group made up of commissioners and also of other subject matter experts if you need to. And I think that's it.
Okay. So I think we all feel we would want some additional subject matter experts or people that maybe are downtown businesses that could take advantage of this.
I might just suggest that you ask for an action before you start discussion. Or
Okay.
ask for a motion before you start discussion.
All right, well, let's.
I'll make a motion.
There's a motion.
Okay. Any other comments on this, or, I guess my comment would be, we need volunteers from the board. We probably should limit it to 4, just to be safe at the most. And then maybe that those 4 people, 3 or 4 people could, with your help, make a list of who from the outside we would recommend or ask to join the working committee. Does that sound reasonable?
So your suggestion is to establish a working group to think of members for the working group?
Well, yeah, I don't think we have, do we have a list prepared?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this board with your help can do that.
Okay.
Or at least the members that would like to be on this working group. Do you want to establish that now?
We can do a couple of things. If you would like to establish who, you were saying I need some volunteers. And then what I can do is you can delay your action and I can come back next month with some recommendations if that
Okay.
works.
Sure. Do we have volunteers?
Well, I volunteer.
Yeah, I'll step up as well.
I gotta be honest, it's gonna be a big deal.
So that's 4.
All right. But then, sorry, just a clarification then. Do we have to wait until next week to get the outside members? Is that what we're doing? Or?
So what I'm suggesting is that you don't establish, the action item today is to establish a working group for the parking incentive plan review. What I am suggesting is that you delay that action item to next month because you would like me to prepare, it sounds like from the chair, prepare a list of potential subject matter experts. So the only other thing in this discussion I think would be helpful is if you all would let me know maybe areas or categories or subject matter that you would like to see some representation from, and that could help me prepare that list, and then you can just delay this action. That's my suggestion.
Well, what comes to my mind is someone in the office space that's attempting to lease office space. Maybe someone from retail, because parking comes up in retail applications as well.
I would add restaurants, food and beverage
Yeah.
as well.
When I say retail, I cover
Oh, that doesn't seem
soft and hard. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So,
I would suggest people who work downtown, not just business owners.
How about residents? If we have a long-term goal of 5,000 people living.
Yeah, I think
Turn on your microphone.
residents would be good.
I'm sorry, what
You
were
said
we-
residents.
Residential.
Was it residential, downtown residents, or it was,
Downtown residents.
is that where, and then downtown employees as well? Is that?
Yes,
that
that's
in
what
there?
I,
Okay.
yeah, yep.
And then commercial real estate, folks that are trying to retain and attract restaurants, retail, and commercial office.
All right, so what I have is you would like to see subject matter experts from office space, retail, food and beverage, or soft and hard retail, so that's food and beverage, restaurants, light retail, that kind of thing as well. And downtown, both residents and/or employees, sounds like, and then commercial real estate, and those are
And
some.
I would add one other piece to that. If we can get some variance around small business versus big business, the person that's been here 5 years versus the business that's been here 20 years.
Okay.
Get some variance in that as well, because that's going to give a different scope of lens of what they share with us.
All right. I think I have my marching orders.
Do we really need to delay the motion? I think we're setting up the committee that's still, we can establish that with those possible members of that committee.
Yeah, if
So we don't
that's-
have to delay this?
I see what you're saying. So you'd like to establish a committee with the 4 commissioners, Whistling, Sesa, Lunger, Mathis. Did I say Sesa wrong?
Sasa.
Sasa, there we go. And then a list of representatives that you'd like me to come up with.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're ready for that. I think we're ready to work for a work group, but I'd like us to approve whoever that is, because we just came up with about 15 different categories there. We're not going to fill all those baskets.
Well, people have to be willing to
Right.
volunteer as well.
Right, exactly. So, saying, let's go work on this is different than saying, we've just approved a group. Otherwise, Jessica is going to be filling those slots, right? So the question is, do we approve the people or do we not? And I'd rather take a look at the group when it's formed.
All right, that's fair. So we will delay this motion till next meeting. Okay?
All right.
One
Okay.
thing that might help with getting people to volunteer would be some idea of like how much we're going to meet and when and where and for how long.
How about I also bring back a little structure of how I would like to facilitate this discussion? Is that all right with you all?
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you a little framework, and then we can have a discussion about, and have you all's perspective and input on that, and we'll go from there.
It's good.
Might take a little bit to put this together, but it's been around for 30 years. So I think
Time is of the essence.
time is of the essence. However, I do appreciate a little extra time delaying this action, because I'd like to run this up to the city manager and let him know that this has been a discussion here and you all are interested in exploring this, and just letting them know so that he can communicate that as well with your city commissioners.
Okay, great.
All right? Thank you.
So Commissioner Lunger, would you like to withdraw your motion?
I didn't make the motion.
Who made the motion?
Oh, I did.
Okay,
I withdraw it.
okay. All right. That moves us to discussion items, the Rapid Transit Master Plan. Mr. Nick, welcome. His first name's easier to pronounce than his last name.
We can leave it there, yes. No, absolutely. Good to be back here. See a lot of familiar faces. Thanks for the invitation. Definitely look forward to the opportunity. So, and this group was essential in helping to create the guiding principles for this process. I know that we presented this in the beginning stages of this process a couple of years ago. Very insightful input that helped guide this process. So we completed the TMP earlier this year. And because every item here is in your packet, I'll just go through the process. I just want to make sure that I want to leave as much time for your input, any questions. Everything that's written, I don't really need to kind of reiterate, but again, want to use this time as effectively as possible. Quick background, which most of you are aware of the scope of the study geographically. So it's within our 6 cities, which is our existing service area. But we also did another echelon of geography within Kent County and a few townships to the west in Ottawa County. Here's a list of all of the chapters, all of the tasks and deliverables that were involved in this as well. The overall framework, which this group was a part of, one of the focus groups, but the big umbrella is community input, right? This is a very large community-driven process. Steering committee, which Mr. Lunger was involved on as well. Aaron from Mobile GR staff was on our technical advisory committee, very helpful for us through that process. Max was, for the first half of the TMP, deputy project manager of this, so there's a lot of familiarity here, and of course, Kevin, my colleague at the Rapid, very familiar with this process as well. All governed through our planning and tech committee, which is made up of our board, and our board and mayor appreciate your opportunity to have some insight on this. I know you've seen this already. But thank you for the board participation. These are the guiding principles. This group helped establish these along with our board. Every strategy that's recommended in this TMP has been screened through these guiding principles to ensure that each and every one of them are unanimously incorporating each of these guiding principles. Branding, website, we had a number of treatments around the community. Hardscape physically on the bus to kind of help draw people in to get as much public input as possible. Based on that diagram of our structure, steering committee, focus groups, technical advisory committee, public open houses in the fall and in the spring, we went on the road and met with a lot of organizations, agencies, different entities that were interested in contributing to this, media representation as well. With all of our public engagement, we've got about a 100-page engagement summary. We were also featured in an issue of Michigan Planner on our public engagement process, so we're happy about that. Some of the data there for all of the public engagement. Over 1,000 responses to our online survey. What's most interesting, so these are kind of the buckets of what we heard from the public. Improving existing service, largely number one. So let's just primarily focus at the existing service area. Let's improve services there, followed by expanding service and then getting into some more of the joint development TOD stuff. 68% of these 1,000 online surveys have never stepped foot on a bus, but all unanimously expressed their interest for improving public transportation. Many of those people that took the survey have access to cars. Some of them use transit, some of them more frequently than others, but again, unanimously, they see the value and the importance for providing more public transportation. And what we can talk about later is just that, of course, nobody really has the will to want to pay for that. That's a whole different story. Planning and tech committees, similarly, with filtering through these categories, more importance to the existing service improvements from our board members. Mayor Bliss was part of this committee in her tenure, followed by future expansion and regional partnerships. So we see a lot of our public outreach with our stakeholder groups aligning to what their priorities were. So getting all of the data from the market analysis, existing conditions, peer review, taking all of the input from our focus groups, from our stakeholder groups, and everything from the public, dumping that all into the hopper, situating that all out and distilling that into outcomes is what we developed to get into what these buckets of our recommended concepts were. So the 6 buckets, community awareness and education, existing service improvements, future service expansion, transit-oriented development, innovation and technology, and regional partnerships. So all of the recommendations fit into those categories, and the 2 foundational elements necessary for making any of this work is sustainable funding and ensuring that we've got the internal workforce enabled to implement these recommendations. This is just kind of another way to look at, this is a 20-year plan. Near term's 5 years, 5 to 10, and then over 10 years. Most of the recommendations fall within the first 5 years. Now, there's a little bit of a difference. This is a transit master plan, not a long-range service plan. So the format of this, as it was, the final plan was generated, is much more of a, it's much less of a prescriptive document that identifies these are the pieces and parts to fit into play. We'll talk a little bit about how we move forward into implementation in a minute. Each of the near-term recommendations have a one-pager that gives the context, some of the background, what we need to do to implement. Funding scenarios, is it cost neutral? Do we need one time? Is it sustainable for operating or capital, staffing scenarios, and so on? And these will all be produced when we get into the the midterm. Now, these next few slides are the list of all of the strategies within each of these buckets. Now, again, in lieu of going through these individually, I'd be happy to if the will of the group wants me to. But these are all in your packet and have all been, again, distilled out of this process. So existing, future service, so we've got near-term, midterm, long-term. Transit-oriented development, which is more of kind of a looking at what transit can do outside of the street, right? How do we improve development, improve land use, improve economic development for the benefit of the corridors? A lot more technology. Mobility wallet and mobility as a service is probably something that came up the most in innovation and technology, just making the convenience of accessing transit the most important. Mayor, did you have a question?
No, I just, sorry, I'll keep it for the end. Thanks.
Okay. And please, don't hesitate. I just want to keep this as conversational as possible. Regional partnerships. We also explored funding tools. Now, what is identified in green are funding tools that we currently have access to. There's two primary buckets of our funding. There's the capital side and there's the operating side. Capital, 80% federal, 20% from the state. The operating side, the funds we need to move the vehicles, roll the vehicles, provide service, all comes locally. These are the tools that we currently have. However, in looking at peers and in looking at the entire array of funding mechanisms throughout the entire country, there are many more. These are just some of the other opportunities that we examined, the remaining that are listed here. Inside, there's a huge matrix for each of these funding tools, describing them, peer examples that are used, what kind of revenue that brings, is it low, medium, high, is it operating, is it capital, and some implementation challenges. I'll move back as an example. One of the most popular funding tools for operating is sales tax around metropolitan regions in the country, right? Provides a lot of revenue. It's very volatile, a little bit more difficult to budget. However, our state constitution does not allow transit authorities to levy or to go out for referendum to even ask the question to capture that. So there are some limitations on all of these. What we currently can and can't do under our legislative umbrella right now, but part of our process is to unpackage all of these and to evaluate what we and our board would like to move forward on to keep moving forward. Performance measures, right? How do we measure success, right? This is just, we've got quantitative opportunities, we've got qualitative by stop route design, how efficient are we? And I'll add too that with our peer review with the National Transit Database, we are one of the most cost-efficient transit agencies out of peers, about 10 to 15 that we evaluated. So that's cost per mile, passengers per mile, a number of these metrics, fare box recovery. So we're excited to share that too. So we want to keep our screws tight and make sure that we're offering the best service where we can with the limited resources that we have. As I mentioned, this is not prescriptive, right? What we established in terms of all of the data and the public input, just because this process is done, doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to evaluate and course correct as needed. As condition changes, we don't have a static document. This is a living, breathing document. So in continuous review with stakeholder groups, with data, we want to make sure that we keep this document as timely as possible and that we can remain nimble and agile for the community needs. So as we set that sort of thinking up, when we look at the first 5 years, first couple of years, what are these strategies for implementation? We'll talk about that in a little bit. How are we going to get there with funding and staff? What additional funding can we look at? But as we get into the latter end of this near term, let's see what we implemented, what's effective, but also what kind of course corrections do we need to make to evaluate the effectiveness of what we're recommending right now, but also what needs to change. Every term has that kind of roadmap. So we've got the same thing for the midterm. And again, this is just a roadmap. That doesn't mean we can't look every year at what needs to change to make sure what we're providing best suits the community long term. Stakeholder Implementation Committee. So even though this plan is finished, the work now begins, right? We have to, how do we implement this? Who needs to be at the table? This is just a bullet point list of all of the different sectors and representation that should be involved to ensure that we can achieve and implement everything that is involved in this, and who are the people that will help us course correct. This list is being populated. Our Planning and Technology Committee is helping to compose this roster. Implementation, Stakeholder Committee, more funding, staff, and then develop a schedule to periodically review this to make sure we're doing the right thing and moving in the right direction. So that's that. It's kind of a breezed way through this. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
Yeah, rather than questions, I have random suggestions or
Yeah.
dreams. So one is, I want to, in very, very big terms, I'm guessing that the traditional answer to the question of why don't we use smaller buses is it doesn't save us much money.
Correct.
Because you still have a vehicle, it still costs money, the driver is a fixed cost, right? I get all that. However, I often wonder whether we are properly weighting other considerations. So, for example, a much smaller bus interacts very differently with, say, bicycles.
Yep.
Interacts very differently with pedestrians. Interacts very differently with traffic flow. It's just harder to get around a big bus. They're a bigger thing, and we are having a discussion at the city right now about going to only one trash collection system in the city, and one of the big arguments for that is big things going around your city break your roads. And so bigger buses break your roads more than smaller buses. And I get that the system wouldn't capture the benefit of that, but the community would capture those benefits. Similarly, if we were to put a bigger priority on electric buses, one of the biggest benefits, the biggest benefit probably would be tailpipe emissions, but a non-trivial secondary benefit is noise.
Yeah.
That's not something that we often talk about quantifying. We don't talk about like urban noise levels very often.
Right.
One of the things I was struck with, I was just in Amsterdam, and I said to people, I honestly wonder if in Amsterdam people are talking to each other more because there's so much less vehicular noise that they feel like they have to replace that noise with something else, and so they talk to each other. The dominant noise on city streets and a lot of Amsterdam streets is actually human conversation, which is just shocking from an American perspective to be like, wow, that's the loudest thing I'm hearing is human voices. I do know I'm shocked every time I'm passed by an electric bus in another city. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I didn't really notice that bus until it was right next to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not used to that being a thing. One of the characteristics of buses that they're stealth. So I do wonder whether when we're doing these sorting matrices, whether we're doing not a how does this affect the system analysis, but like
Sure.
how does this affect the community, and weighting those things as fully as we might. The other thing I'll say, and again, this is a very urbanist thing to say, or realist urbanist thing to say, but it's something Sadiq Khan points out is we talk about desire lines, which is what people are actually doing as opposed to like what you tell them they should do. So a desire line for me, for example, is to bike the wrong way on Ottawa, because like I can't get to this building without doing a 4-block detour. I'm not going to do that. So pedestrians are way, way more nimbler than any other form of transportation. So pedestrians like me will often cross mid-block. We will often weave in and out and do flexible things. One of the ways I think we could have done better on the Silver Line, for example, is those stops, from my pedestrian perspective, are simply too big. Mm-hmm. They take up like the one by the library takes up like half the block, and it means I can't hop a curb because the curb is like set up so that the buses can like have people get on them, and that's great, but it doesn't have to be a block wide for that bus. It could be, 20, 30 feet wide. It could be, and the bus stop area is so big that it blocks, I can't cross through that bus stop stop if I want to cut through the parking lot that's behind it. When I go to the library, I want to take the closest distance between 2 points.
Right.
And I'd like to be able to cut through that Silver Line bus stop, but it's bigger than it needs to be.
Sure.
So again, that's, the question of like, are you cutting into what pedestrians actually want to do? I get the technical answer, or the traditional answer would be, oh, pedestrians have to cross at the crosswalks.
Yeah.
They're supposed to cross at the corners. Well, we want to build environment that will track and respond to what people are doing. So I'd suggest that that's all part of the conversation about bus sizing, and so I would love to see
Sure.
a more robust conversation about
Yeah.
bus sizing,
Yeah.
not to save money, but because of all those other
Understood.
benefits. The other thing I'd love to have you speak about is, has there been any real discussion about how we could do better about the last mile integration? So where I'm going there is we've got a central bus stop. And right now, it doesn't hit me over the head like, wow, would it be easy to rent an electric bike here? I see there's 200 of them over there.
Yeah.
Like I'm at the bus stop. This is like maybe where I stopped, certainly if I'm going downtown.
Yeah.
Like, I bet they're there somewhere. I haven't seen them. So
Yeah.
the fact that I haven't seen them means I'm making myself the dumb consumer here. I'm not saying they're probably there somewhere. I just haven't seen them.
Yeah. Appreciate your comments. Yes, so I just flipped it to the, existing service improvement. The top two are microtransit effectiveness, right? So it's not just the technical measures. What are the ancillary measures that you pointed out that can achieve those benefits? Identifying what those performance measures are per strategy, right? It's not just this is the full TMP implementation, but each of these strategies can have their own measures. Absolutely. And we'll definitely get to that point to identify what those are. The vehicle, we have a zero-emission bus plan. Kevin might know a lot more than me about the specifics of that in terms of fleet decisions. I know that we've got a fleet and facilities plan in this, which not only just establishes existing fleet and facilities, but what is the movement in the right direction? I mean, hydrogen, I think, is moving faster than electric vehicles, some of the infrastructure implications, but you might know a little bit
For
more.
the larger vehicle, the cost is still pretty prohibitive in terms of
Capital?
the capital, and also like for an electric, the ranges aren't quite there. They're coming up quickly, and I think we're getting to the point where we actually can look at them. But right now, for a lot of, especially for electric, you're looking at 2 buses for one. That being said, we did recently purchase 12 electric paired. The demand response is small, like 4 transit sizes. So we do have our first zero emissions that are on the road. So we're dabbling in that space, and I think we're very interested. But also, I think at this point, especially for hydrogen electric, the costs on capital and operating are very high. So we're definitely interested in the space and want to move forward with it.
Well, I do remember, this will date me, but like back when I was on city commission in 2010, George Hartwell in the newspaper said about hybrid buses, it doesn't make any economic sense, but I want to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be in that space.
Yeah. With the first mile, last mile, again, that's the second strategy right there as well. Even outside of Grand Rapids in the 6-city community, there are best practices, there are innovative practices that we might be able to pioneer and trailblaze to establish what that effectiveness is. Land use and development is a huge consideration of this. The further out we go, we're a pulse radial system. As we kind of get into the center core, we're not building around the scale and speed of the car, which is largely the case kind of in our, outside, communities, which is ideal for first mile, last mile. But as we think about, the safety aspect of micromobility, on the 28th streets of the world, this makes it a little bit more challenging. But there's that balance, right? There's taking all of those pieces and parts and plopping them in to determining where that sweet spot is to ensure that any implementation on this is as effective as it can be, not just from a cost side, right, but from a customer experience side as well. So these are all considerations that will definitely add in to all of these recommendations, and as we kind of glean what insights we can from that, that's when we're going to start getting into that, rolling up the sleeves, and let's start implementing. Thank you for your input, Mayor.
Anybody else? Yes.
I guess I have a somewhat different perspective that I would like to offer, which is that, I appreciate, Mayor, all the suggestions that you have around like the smaller vehicles and what can we do to to reduce noise, because that is a huge concern in cities, but it mostly is cars, right? It's vehicles. And I think that one thing we're not really thinking about is if we can get more people to ride the bus, fewer people are driving their cars. And so we have fewer vehicles on the road, which is also a consideration. Like, if you have, 90 people on a bus and that's 90 cars you're replacing, like that's a big deal, right? And one thing that's top of mind for me always with these discussions is funding, because I know that the funding situation at the state level is non-optimal.
Deflating, yes.
And I worry, listing all these things, right? I see dollar signs and I worry that it's not, we could have a smaller bus and maybe it's better because our road breaks, but then we bought a smaller bus. We had to get rid of the bus we had. Are we really investing in service improvements, which I think is what you're saying from the feedback. And for myself as a transit rider, I rode the bus here today, that's what we want to see, right? We want to make it a usable system where, we have maybe greater frequency. We have 15-minute frequency on more routes. We have buses that run later, especially on the weekend, so that it's usable for people coming into the city for tourism or events or anything like that. And so I would always keep top of mind, I know you said you have from your survey, I think you said 68% of the respondents had never rode a bus here before. And that kind of surprised me. But, what are the things we can actually do here that are going to move that needle so that more people ride the bus? Yeah.
I appreciate and I agree with all of your comments, from the market analysis, so that some of the data that we have is called replica. It's tracking cell phone movement, right? So, Mayor, we can see desire lines based on the movement of people's cell phones, even if your geolocation is off. What we heard overwhelmingly from these folks is that as we talk about, I'll just go back to the guiding principles, the most important thing is convenience. Once transit can become equally as convenient as driving, because it is easy to drive around here, and it's really cheap to park comparatively. We incentivize driving and parking because that's what we design around. That's what we build around. Transit takes 2 to 3 times longer a trip than it does driving. We've got examples, case in point, the Laker line, right? You are coming from downtown going out to Allendale. Instead of parking a quarter mile away in a surface lot in the middle of the winter, getting to your class, you get dropped off right in the heart of campus on a vehicle that's already warm in the winter. You don't have to scrape. Light bulbs start turning on and people are like, why don't I use this? It's more convenient. We all know stories in bigger cities. Why would I drive? That's crazy. I'm going to take transit, right? So, we're in our adolescence of how we think about mobility here, and I think with the great working relationship with a number of different stakeholders, in the mobility space, in the development space, we can get there if the will is there to recognize exactly what you're saying. More vehicles, more frequency, later in the day, earlier in the day, getting to a point where I want to stop at a bus stop regardless of the time of day and know what the frequency is going to be, instead of wondering, is it the afternoon, is it the morning? Because right now we have to be very surgical about putting service that's the most effective. Completely agree. We could have a podcast and we can continue the conversation.
Love it. I have another question then related, because, as you're saying, the funding and having to sort of figure out exactly how you can get the most out of every dollar you have. So then my question is, I think we have a board here that is all very supportive of transit and wanting to move this forward. So as you mentioned, who could champion the implementation? So what are ways that you think that we could do that?
Really good question. As we kind of put together a blueprint for not only the roster, and the composition of this group, as we kind of build an advocacy arm that's separately sort of administered from the Rapid as an organization, we, and our board are talking about what is the next step of funding, right? At this stage, I mean, where we are right now is we kind of plant some seeds and let the germination begin. Any advocacy, word of mouth, everything that you're all doing and kind of what you stand for, until we can structure something that we can join, that we can participate in, that we can meet, we're going to map out all of those opportunities and hopefully make that contagious, right? Because we know people want more, even if you've never stepped a foot on a bus. So we're in the first stages of kind of, determining what that blueprint's going to look like. But, yeah, thank you for that.
Mayor?
Yeah, look, I really don't need to have the last word here, so someone can completely disagree with me. But I actually disagree with something you said, and I think it's worth pointing out. I don't think that in the realistic time horizons we're talking about, in the city we're talking about, in the core city, which is what I'm primarily concerned about, talking about making transit faster than cars is achievable. I think that there are two scenarios in which it's possible. One is the island of Manhattan. Like, it is possible to get somewhere on the subway in Manhattan faster than in a car.
Yep.
We've all seen, well, maybe only people my age and older have seen planes, trains, and automobiles, but like, it is possible. The island of Manhattan, it's hard to move around in a car. The other is going out to the cornfields where we shouldn't have our state university. But if you were to try to drive from here to the downtown Grand Valley campus, there's no way you can build a bus line that's going to beat a car to do that. So, if we aspire, we don't aspire really to be Manhattan anytime soon. Let's pretend we aspire to be Boston, which is a significantly denser city.
Yeah.
Cars are still always faster than transit in Boston.
Yeah.
They've got a subway system, they got a bus system, I use it.
Yeah.
It takes my daughter 45 minutes to get on Massachusetts Avenue from New England Conservatory of Music to Harvard. It's a 3-mile ride. She can do it 45 minutes on a bus, 45 minutes by subway, 45 minutes by walking, or 15 minutes in really, really bad traffic in a car. So we want to make transit better. That's all true. But let's not overstate. It's a little like when in the global warming.
Point well taken.
We're killing the planet.
No,
we're not killing the planet. We're like making it hard for people to live on it.
Point well taken. And I think from, the consumer behavior of mobility, travel patterns and behaviors, there's that kind of Pareto's optimality, right? There's that sweet spot where it's time on one axis, and money. Right? So it may not be, my optimism always wins out in terms of equalizing convenience. I accept that. But at what point will the convenience escalate not to match that of driving around that's worth my time? Everybody's got a different point on that graph, right? If we can identify what that is, that's when we start to see strong returns.
Right. If we build a strong enough transit system that you don't have to have a car, you save 10 grand. So we're fighting time plus 10 grand. We're not just fighting time.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, point well taken.
Anybody else? Good comments.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Excuse me. Next, we have the Dash year in review.
Thanks. So Max Dillevin is coming up to give you all a full overview of the Dash, but one of the things that's really exciting is that the Dash underwent a route change, and this is the first year that we've been able to take a look at that route change and then compare it to the second year, right? He's going to go over all of these details. Anyway, this is the first time that we could sit down and really give you a full year with the new route in an overview and then let you know kind of how this compares to things in the past. So I'm excited for Max to start this, and here we go.
Yeah. Thanks, Jess. And I think Dash is really follows on the heels of Nico's conversation really well, because the Dash is a crucial piece of that fixed route system that we have in Grand Rapids by providing that highly frequent downtown circulator service that we all know and love very well. So this presentation is going to be going over some of those ridership changes that we've seen since those service enhancements have been implemented. We've made some changes to our fleet with the goal of sustainability in mind. We've also had several community engagement opportunities and a lot of really robust social media outreach. And then I'll also finish it up by talking about some other upcoming efforts that we have in the hopper to improve the Dash system. So, the big announcement that was made in January 29th of 2024 was that we upgraded the Dash service to a 7-day-a-week service. Previously to that, we were running Wednesday through Sunday, just those 5 days. Part of that was due to some of the operator challenges, the number of operators that the Rapid had available. And so we had to kind of keep with the same amount of service that Dash 2.0 had, which was that Monday through Friday, more weekday-oriented, commuter-oriented type of service. So with the redesign into Dash 3.0, it was transformed from the Dash North and Dash West systems into a bi-directional downtown circulator that hit more key downtown destinations, hotels, museums, sports complexes, things like that. So since we were able to implement this 7-day-a-week service, if you've been following the monthly Dash ridership reports, this will come as no surprise to you. But we've seen some pretty major returns on that investment. In this timeline graph here, you'll see the implementation of Dash 3.0 in April of 2023. We did expect that there would be some ridership decreases. Anytime you have a public transit route and you change it, the alignment of the route, the schedule, you're disrupting people's travel patterns. And that this is kind of what we see here is exactly what's expected. And that's why when you do implement a new route like the Dash 3.0, you typically put it on kind of a 12 or 6 to 12 month kind of probationary period while you evaluate its success. So give it time to mature. We have, and we're really seeing those dividends pay off right around the time that we implemented that 7-day-a-week service in late January of 2024. We've really seen that ridership surge, and in March of 2025, we actually saw Dash ridership exceed 40,000 rides for the first time since before the pandemic. Now, one question that may be asked is, well, okay, you added 2 days of service. That's increasing your costs. But when we control for those number of operating days and that enhanced level of service and increased costs, and we look at it from an average daily perspective, this graph is a little bit different, but you have the lightest color in 2023, that 2024 is in the kind of the middle pink, and then 2025, what we've seen so far year to date in the darker red. We've seen that average daily ridership really boost, and a lot of that is because that now Dash is just much more dependable, kind of to what the conversation was earlier about, being surgical about times and days. Well, no, you just now walk out to a Dash stop and you just expect, it's going to be there in 15 minutes or less, 15 minutes at the most. And because you have that dependability, people will use it that much more. So we really saw that daily ridership exceed, and now we're kind of pushing around that 2,000 per weekday mark. I also had in here this exact same graph, but for weekends, but it mirrored it entirely, which is really exciting to see. So Dash is now meeting a lot of that kind of leisure and visitor travel need as well, beyond just kind of its traditional role as a commuter service. Also made some improvements to our fleet. Right now, we have a total of 14 vehicles that help run our Dash service. A few of those, though, are getting pretty long in the tooth, we'll say. We retired 2 of our aging 29-foot diesel-powered buses from 2011. The fact that they're even able to last until 2011 is kind of impressive and really speaks to just the great work that the Rapids fleet maintenance team does for us. Typically, a diesel bus is only going to last you about 10 years, maybe 300,000 miles. So the fact that we've gotten 13 to 14 years out of them is pretty impressive. But aging fleet. It kind of degrades the quality and perception of the service at the same time. So we had 2 new vehicles, 35-foot CNG RNG vehicles that were delivered later last year in September. So here's just an image of one of those newer vehicles running on that CNG, and RNG also pushes us toward those decarbonization efforts that we at the city and as a region have. The vehicles themselves, this one's actually just brand new, doesn't even have its bike rack on there yet, but yeah, just a much cleaner, nicer looking bus. We haven't had a new bus delivered since 2019, so good to freshen up the fleet. Here's the interior. The interiors have really been kind of revamped. This group, I wasn't part of this group at the time, but there was a decision to migrate away from kind of some of the upholstered softer seats to these soft plastic kind of pink ones that kind of really liven up the interior, make it less drab, and also kind of really furthers and bolsters the branding of the dash. These are also nicer because they can be switched out and cleaned a lot easier. That's one of the issues with the upholstered seats. I like this picture too. The picture of Jess, you can almost see like the speech bubble coming out of her mouth saying like, this bus is awesome. So yeah, and it also has greater capacity. One of the things that we talk about trade-offs between small buses and big buses, well, the benefit of having a larger bus is that it can accommodate those peak periods when you have a lot of folks. So these 35-foot buses can squeeze in about 10 more people. You can probably about get like 45 sitting and standing in these at any given time, which during those peak periods is pretty important. We've also been really intentional about engaging with some of our community partners. Transit isn't just something that gets you from A to B. There's so much more to it. One of the things that we partnered with Avenue for the Arts for something we called Rapid Art Movement that was displayed during the World of Winter Festival that DGRI puts on. This was a 3-day event where transit was used as basically kind of a platform for culture and art to, again, showcase that it's more than just about getting people from A to B. This is something that came directly out of some conversations. Commissioner Lunger, you might remember some of the stakeholders that we met with on the west side were really interested in kind of allowing the bus to kind of be this place for artists to showcase their craft or perform. This event, like I said, was over a 3-day period and featured singer-songwriters, tap dancers. This particular individual is doing a charcoal sketch. It was really fun. The bus went around its route, and at like specific stops, new artists would get on and perform, which was really fun and exciting, and it was really well attended. It was a wonderful event, and then I think people that don't usually take transit now have been, oh, I can use the dash, and this is where it goes, and this is really cool and exciting. We've also partnered with a number of other entities for some of our really robust social media engagement. I can just kind of give a quick overview, but I think my colleague Max Gillis can really speak to this in much more detail. But working with the Chamber for Rich App here to kind of espouse the benefits of the frequent dash service. We've also posted a lot to TikTok. One particular video got like 277,000 views and an average watch time of 6 seconds, which in this day and age is basically an eternity. But it also yielded 1.6 thousand new followers, and it's been very, very successful, and we're getting a lot more eyes and awareness of the dash as well. Some of these upcoming efforts that we're really excited about will be implementing an onboard intercept survey, I should say, of dash riders to gain insights and perspectives of those who use the system. The survey will be administered by MobileGR staff through May and June of this year. And we're going to be asking questions that will allow us to better understand users' trip purpose, frequency of use, how much they're using it, desired improvements, what other modes they utilize. So again, talking about that first mile, last mile element. Are we getting a lot of people taking scooters that then get on the dash or vice versa? Perceptions of safety, attitudes towards those routing changes that were made last May. We'll also be kind of trying to get a net promoter score and get some of the basic demographic information of those who utilize the service. We'll also be gathering contact information for some follow-up surveying or some potential focus groups as well. And our goal is around 250 survey participants is what we're looking at. We'll be going out mornings, nights, weekdays, weekends to try to capture those different kind of user segments. Yeah, Commissioner Linger.
Yeah, love that you're doing the intercept survey. I'd be really excited to see the results. Has there ever done this before where you maybe looked at some of the businesses along stops and tried to get, especially in the areas where we've expanded, and try to see, what do you like, what don't you like, what's working, what's not working, and see if there's more that can be done to engage folks along these corridors?
Yeah, great question. I think that's something we could probably internally huddle on and try to find a way to accomplish that for sure. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Yeah, so that it will be something after we conduct that survey. We'll come back to you all and present all of our findings, and we're really interested and excited to see that. The remaining diesel vehicles in our fleet will be retired later this year, so we'll be completely rid of diesel. It's something definitely exciting and a little bit of a watershed moment, I suppose. Lastly, we've been engaging in a bus stop improvement project over the last several years, but every year it kind of takes on another iteration. This bus stop improvement project is a joint collaboration with DGRI, the Rapid, and our Mobile GR staff here. The goal is to really improve the waiting experience and the dignity of waiting for transit, but also improving transit operations as well. This is a good example where we see a bulb out built next to a crosswalk with a transit shelter. It'd be perfect to see a waste receptacle and like a designated parking zone next to it. I'll try to find a better picture next time, but these are the types of things that we're trying to co-locate and improve the infrastructure around transit to make it that much more enjoyable of an experience and easier to use. Each of these shelters comes also with solar lighting for safety considerations as well. So this year's iteration of that bus stop improvement project identified about 40-ish sites around the city of Grand Rapids for stop enhancements like shelters, bulb outs, benches, and things like that. You'll notice they're a pretty high concentration in the downtown. The purpose of that is that we're really targeting dash stops. As we made that change from north and west to the bi-directional circulator, we added a lot of new stops, so we want to make sure we get those enhanced with benches and shelters and concrete pads and everything. But there's also a number of other rapid stops throughout the city as well, and we try to take into consideration the geographic dispersion among the three wards as well. Another exciting aspect of the bus stop improvement project is this use of what we call Zikla platforms. Zikla is a company out of Spain that makes these kind of temporary bus platforms, and last Sunday we had the installation of one on Division just north of Weston Street. They're these kind of cool like modular platforms that are raised, and what it allows is just kind of the ability to bring the curb out to the travel lane rather than having to undergo a really expensive road reconstruction project. So these are really great for kind of temporary demonstrations, but they also have the durability to last several years. So we had our build day on Sunday, as I mentioned. And the finished product is here, and you can kind of see how that extended curb reaches out to the travel lane. That allows the bus to stay where it's at in the travel lane, not have to pull out of traffic and then have cars trying to drive around it. It also creates a much more consistent and safer condition where cars are stopping behind the bus, it's slowing traffic down, and you're not getting kind of that around the bus passing, which is pretty problematic, especially for those folks who would be crossing at that crosswalk. This will eventually kind of get zhuzhed up with some planters and benches that DGRI will be adding in. But we're really excited to see this deployed, and a great partnership with some of our other folks at DGRI and the Rapid as well.
Can I jump in here a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you, that sliding, can you pull back, is it just one slide prior? Two maybe, okay. When I look at that, what I see is something that really makes it a lot harder to use a bike. There are no slopes on the side of it, and you've got one lane there for all traffic, not really a bike lane. There's a couple stripes there. I don't know what they're supposed to be for. That's definitely not a bike lane. So if I'm on a bike and I'm trying to not get hit by cars on South Division, that's exactly where I want to be. Also, when you're talking about bulb outs at your last one, there's no feathering on the side of that bulb out, so there's no possibility that a bike could interact with that bulb out in any way other than going out into it looks like an opportunity for a cyclist to die. So I think that we really have to be re-examining the whole bulb out conversation so we can not make these things adverse to biking possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that because this particular platform was part of I wish I had a photo of it, but when we deployed this at Front and Wealthy, it actually was part of a bike lane and kind of toward if you can sort of imagine that space between the actual curb and the start of the Zikla, actually had this ramped, very cool ramped 5-foot wide area for bikes, and it worked very well. This is maybe a condition that is less accommodating to bicyclists, certainly. They would have to utilize the travel lane. And that's just one of the considerations as we deploy these things temporarily. Well, when the road is reconstructed in the future, we know some of the potential things to design around in that case. And maybe John can speak a little bit more to that as well. But I take your point, and that's a very good point.
Any other comments or questions?
You mentioned a few slides back about the wait times. I was curious to what is that wait time currently, and what is your goal wait time to get to?
For the Dash specifically, yeah, so we're running at a 15-minute frequency right now. So every 15 minutes at any given stop, there's going to be a bus arriving. There has been some discussions around reducing that frequency to like a 10-minute per se. That does have the budgetary impacts, and there's also issues with the number of operators, things like that. Also, the number of buses is key in that calculus as well. And that is something that we're having discussions around. Obviously, I always say in the public transit world, frequency is freedom. You know, the less time you have to wait, the quicker you're getting to your destination. So that is something that we would like to be working toward.
Americans are so patient, too.
But to your point, Commissioner Mathis, one of the potential answer choices on the survey about improvements is maybe some real-time arrivals signage. So maybe we can't get up to 10-minute frequency because it's really expensive, but if people see, oh yeah, next bus in 5 minutes, it's like, oh, okay, I can wait 5 minutes, you know? But it's kind of the not knowing that makes you maybe a little bit weary, so, you know, there are other ways to try to solve for that issue, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to suggest, that like more asking what would be required to implement having the real-time tracking at the bus stops?
Yeah, the software backing is there. It's kind of a hardware and capital expense that's tough. You got to run fiber optic. The signs themselves can be a little costly. There's not a ton of manufacturers, especially in the U.S., that make them. That's not to say it's not impossible, but they're a little bit of an investment for sure. And Kevin, I know you've looked into this a bit. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely the issue. And the other, I mean, we're trying to also, I know it's not the ideal, but direct people people have smartphones now and to go that way too. But I will say having the actual like signage rate, like for the Silver Line and Laker Line, that really does help because it's that perceived weight that really is an issue. So something we're looking at too is well, we can put better bus stop information. And it's that cost benefit, but it is ongoing discussion.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have, it's not addressed in this presentation, but one thing that you notice when you're using transit around the city is that every, not entity, but like every type of bus has its own stop. So like, especially on Michigan or Monroe, I think like right in front of us, right? There's a Laker Line, Silver Line stop, then there's like the fixed route stop, and then there's a Dash stop. And that's really confusing. Like especially the first time I was on it, I saw like the big BRT stop, and I was like, oh great, that's my stop. And then like we passed it, and I was like, oh no, did I like not press the button right or something? So I'm just wondering if there's any sort of plan to streamline this and like how that would look.
I've Personally, I and with my colleagues, we go back and forth on this constantly because some people then, when you have consolidated stops, get confused and actually will board the wrong vehicle. So it's kind of tough, and we thought by separating it, having the distinctive signage for each service, that might be least confusing, but it's one of those situations where somebody's also, in your case, that is confusing to have them separate, but I take your point because sometimes it's nice to just go to a stop and figure, okay, I'm going to catch the bus here, not to worry about, I might need to be 30 feet down that way. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, and we want to make sure the services could be marketed separately with signage, I think, was our thinking. But, we can certainly reevaluate that as well. Maybe that's something, if we do focus groups, we can ask specific riders on if they would prefer to have them co-located with the rapid stops, or if they are getting confused where they are located. So maybe something to dig into more on like a conversational level.
I'll say too, that was a discussion we had with BRT and regular fixed route too. I mean, so the BRT, they're specifically designed to be level boarding, and and then the regular buses, we could potentially, but there are issues in getting those buses docked. So, yeah, it's an ongoing discussion, and we did feel too by the specific branding and just trying to make it as clear as possible is kind of the direction. But it's something we can continue to discuss.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda are updates.
I have just a couple of updates for you all. So our friend Debbie Ninehouse was unable to make it today, but today would have been her last meeting. She actually turned in her resignation to the clerk's office, so that will show up on the committee of appointments probably at the next meeting. Not making any promises, whatever their schedule is. So if they've made it for the next one, that'll be in there. So we have another open seat. I've done a little bit of analysis of the board seats that are open, and we do have a new commissioner, Adam Weiler, who is not able to make it today. He does plan to be here next week, and he joins us from the 2nd Ward, and also has a lot of housing experience and knowledge. We do have several open seats now, and we are very slim on the Ward 1 and Ward 3 representation. So please keep that in mind when you may speak to others in the community who are interested in coming on board and have them file an application with the clerk's office. We have a number of things and perspectives that the code and our board rules are, call out for us, and one of which is DDA, which Rick Wynn right now sits in that seat, but this is his last year and he's termed out. And so that will be coming up for a conversation in the future. So just be thinking around that. And the other one that will roll off this year is our friend Josh Lunger. I know you termed out too. So be thinking of this. Your board is turning over and filling those seats to help balance for different interests that we definitely want to bring and those perspectives to bring to your board. I also have a note that I know budget is very exciting. It's ongoing conversations right now at the City Commission. I can't answer any questions for you right now. Everything is streamlined, is online to watch the meetings, and there are also lots and lots of information online. After the budget season is finalized and the City Commission makes their decisions, I will come back to you after the closeout of this fiscal year, and we will talk about money. I'll have a better picture after I receive the Commission's decisions. So I plan to do that kind of out in August and September time frame. Last thing, next month we are going to be talking about. I just had it completely blank. I told you all last time, parking. We're going to talk about parking. It's a huge part of what we do at Mobile GR, and we're going to be chatting about the parking investment strategy. We have a team on board that's helping us look at the inventory of what parking is in basically the downtown area. We've used the DDA boundaries to start with this, and how they're collecting data, what they're collecting, what we're finding out, and who we are talking to, who are owners and operators of parking, which is not just Mobile GR, in that area. So I'm really excited to bring them out. They've got maps, they've got visuals, they've got ideas, and so I'm excited to start out with this first part of this, like current conditions, and to bring you all along with that project. And that's all I have for now, unless you all have any other questions.
Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I forgot to say it during the Dash presentation. I just want to commend everyone involved in that entire process. Like, I think the numbers speak for themselves, and it's really so impressive, and it's so great to see it in the city, that the demand and the enthusiasm people are having about that. And so I just want to congratulate all of you on such amazing work with that. Yeah.
Thank you. We're honored to be a part of that process and to partner with the Rapid on that project. And the team that oversees the DASH program here at the city works hard, and they are doing a great job making sure that you all are informed, and also that we've got a really great service in our downtown area for our citizens.
Great. Anything else? All right. Next is public comment on other matters. If there's anyone in the audience would like to step forward. Yes.
Hi there, just real brief. My name is Billy Newsom, I'm a First Ward resident. First off, I just want to say this is the second meeting that I've attended, and it's just been really inspiring to see all the discussion from the commissioners. So I just wanted to say, from a public perspective, it's great to hear you all considering all these great ideas. I just wanted to say the dash seat improvements on the new buses look awesome. I'll say I at the last meeting I went to, I heard the call for everyone to be a Dash evangelist, and I decided to take some coworkers on the Dash, and on the ride there, it was fantastic. It was super easy. The ride back, no problem, but those upholstered seats may have retained some odors. So I'm looking forward to the new seat improvement. I think I convinced a few coworkers that the Dash was a great idea. The other aspect is around those, forget the term that you used, Mayor, the Desire lines. There's a few dash stops where there's kind of a median in between with the new circular routes. So when leaving one area, I kind of had to take a real wide path to go grab the other direction. So I know that's not the direct purview of this commission, but I just thought I'd mention that as well. And yeah, I just want to voice my support for the Transit Go app. I know there's heavy advertising in the Laker line. I use that heavily when I do take the bus to work. It's typically a walk to the Laker line. I do love that app, and from a digital signage perspective, I know we were talking about smartphones as their options. I find that app very easy to use, very reliable, so all in support of it. So thank you.
Before you run up, would you mind just stating your name and spelling it for us real quick?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I noticed it was wrong in another different meeting. So yeah, it's it's Billy Newson. So it's Billy, and that is NEUSON. And like I mentioned, First Ward resident. I have also actually submitted an application for the vacant seat as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
If I can be one of the else and talk to the rest of y'all.
You want to go to the podium?
Not really. I'm tired.
Exactly.
So I would like to, at the close of this meeting, have you all think about something, and that is, so our city budget is going to happen, and that's on its own schedule, right? But there are two things in my world that are on the horizon and real. One is the very strong likelihood that we're going to get some public safety trust fund money, which means I'm going to get, we the city are going to get a new chunk of money to use on public safety stuff. You've heard me say a lot, probably, that I think that public safety properly includes vehicular accidents. So, dead is dead, and we don't want people dead from cars or any other source. Murder is bad, but it's also true that dead is dead, and so we want to be able to drive those numbers down. I think right now our vehicular deaths are higher than murder deaths in the city, and so I think those lines crossed for the first time ever this year, and that's not great, because all of those vehicular deaths, as far as I am concerned, are preventable, and they're preventable by a better design. So whether or not we can use the Public Safety Trust Fund for that purpose, public safety remains really, really an important part of transit for me. So the other thing that there's a very, very strong likelihood we're going to get is a new large amount of money for road funding. Now, we, as you probably everybody up here knows, we've passed a road funding millage, and those of us who, and Jessica, you weren't in Grand Rapids in the dark days of, I don't know, it was 2015 when it looked like a lot of our streets were being rented out to the military for shelling practice. I mean, you'd turn a corner and you'd have to figure out, okay, well, I have to be on the left-hand side of the road for a while here because there's impassable potholes. Now I can go back to the side I'm supposed to be on. So you do this, I mean, in my neighborhood, you'd literally, and you'd expect that everyone was going to have to do that. And so you'd turn onto a road and everyone would be weaving from one side to the other. And so it wasn't just what lane you had to be in, it was avoiding collisions with people who were avoiding potholes. And then we passed sustainable funding and our roads got a lot better. When we get new money, there is going to be a question about do we go spend money to make our pothole situation even better and get, roads that look like, nirvana, or do we, I mean, there's a law of diminishing returns, right? I don't experience our roads as hazardous to drive a car on right now in Grand Rapids. I mean, there are some roads that aren't great and we could always do better. And I'm not saying we should stop filling potholes. I've got to be careful here, but one of the problems that I often talk about is if you're going to do transformative work, it's a whole lot easier to do that with new money than to try to take existing funds that are going to existing programs and pry that money out of those existing programs. So I think that we are going to have a semi-unique, a very unusual situation where the city is maybe going to be in the receipt of a lot of new road money. And if we just do the old things with the new money, I personally think we will have missed an opportunity. Now, who is in the best position to come up with a transformative set of recommendations for how to use that new money? I think this group is. So I think that this body should consider, knowing that that stuff is possible, having some advanced visioning on saying, okay, if there's going to be new money, what percentage of that money do we want to have spent on non-single single occupancy vehicle projects? What percentage of that money is there real money that we should be putting into making much more pedestrian safety? So the little micro flashing light things we have around town are better for pedestrian crossings, are better than no lights for pedestrian crossings, but they're sure not as good as other models I've seen. And I get that they're cheap and we have cost constraints, but I would love to be in a city where we had like 1,000 really good flashing light instant on pedestrian crossing things. I think that might be a tipping point on how cars interact with pedestrians. And if I would love to live in a city where cars instinctively understand that pedestrians are going to happen and that they should plan on pedestrians and not see them roughly the same way I would see an ostrich, like, oh, wow, there's an ostrich. Again, I just came back from the Netherlands. On all the roads in the Netherlands, they have this templated, painted thing on the roads, which say, roads are for bikes, cars are guests. I'm not kidding. That's what they say all over Amsterdam. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're culturally ready to do that in Grand Rapids, but I would love to live in a city where at every intersection or crosswalk we said, roads are for pedestrians, cars are guests. I would love the opportunity to move us towards a tipping point transformational attitude shift on how pedestrians are treated in this town and that there are interruptions to what cars are doing. That's going to take money. But if there's money coming, I think there's a real opportunity. So how we slice and dice that up. Now, we were talking about transit. Like, is there an opportunity to say, like, look, we could make the dash like world-class, let's get national news if we had X amount of money more than we've had now. And can that come from road funding? I don't know. But so there's going to be a real opportunity here for some real money. And so the question is going to be, what are we to want to do transformative work on? Do we want national publicity because we have fewer potholes in any city in the country? Or do we want to be the city that did transformative work on pedestrianizing, on real bike safety, right? A world where it's really, really, a city where it's really, really safe to ride your bike, because Sorry, yeah, you're looking at your watch, Jessica. I'm almost done here. But my point is, like, you know, how often you ride, like, convenience is the whole game for a bus, right? If a bus is like a solar eclipse, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to use it if it's not usable, right? Well, similarly, like, if biking is the thing that crazy people like the mayor does because he's willing to get, you know, roll the dice and maybe get hit by traffic, maybe not, you're never going to get a large percentage of the population to do that. Like, most people I know are scared to ride their bikes in the city most of the time. Moving to a world where that statement's not true is not going to happen for free. So I'm always most concerned about pedestrians. I'm secondarily concerned about bikes. And maybe transit's about a rough tie there. But in terms of how we move the world, we got a great world for people in cars right now. We got a great city for people in cars. I really don't think they need much more help. So I'm not anti-car. I own 2 of them. But I think we got the opportunity to transform stuff. But if we don't, if this body doesn't come up with a vision and an alternative vision for how the world could be, then how things work is inertia. We will just, you know, we'll take that money and we'll divide it out over the stuff we're already doing, and we'll potentially miss a transformative opportunity. So I want to put that out there. This isn't going to happen this week, right? Matt Hall has just proposed his road funding vision, which is way biased towards farm roads. There's going to be another vision put out there, which I hope will be more weighted on funding for city roads. And the nice thing about that is neither group is saying we need to spend so much more money on highways. So there's really this tension between like farm roads and city roads. But either way, I think we're in line to get like tens of millions of more dollars. Like it's real money. So I just want to put that out there. And I think that if traditionally this group has not been a group that comes and says, hey, here's our vision for the city, for how we want you to use specific money in the next 12 months. But I think that we have maybe an opportunity to do that and do some specific anticipatory visioning and actually say to the city commission, here's where Mobile GR thinks you should spend the money. You do what you want to do, city commission, but like, this is what we think.
All right. Anyone against that? I don't think so. All right. Anything else for the greater good?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, John Bartlett, City Transportation Engineer. Just one thing I wanted to plant in your head as you talk about the money, especially the public safety money. I've been digging into like a 10-year history of our fatalities and serious injuries. And so over the last 10 years, 42% of our fatalities involve alcohol, and another 20% on top of that involve recreational and prescription drugs. So you're talking about 60% of our fatalities in the city have some sort of impairment in the driver. So when you talk about public safety money, if they tell you can't use it for infrastructure and it has to be used for law enforcement type things, like DUI, like drunk driving, impaired driving is like a huge focus that'll move the needle drastically in this city.
Thank you. And I was actually thinking of that on my bike in. I was trying to think, how can I use some of that public safety money for transit stuff? And I had the same thought you did, but thank you. I'm 100% with you.
All right. Anything else? All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.